These are just some of the videos that I captured with my iPhone in the last couple of weeks, months, and even years. And the most common question that I get on a daily basis is, how can I get that cinematic look using my iPhone? And one major aspect of getting cinematic videos is having the right settings dialed in. And believe it or not, it is actually not needed to be using a third-party app. All of the shots that you're seeing were captured just using the native camera app and an iPhone. The best settings are changing as Apple is constantly and always evolving and adding new features, and also sometimes they're adding new hardware. But as of recording of this video, these are the top video settings that you should be using to get some cinematic videos with your iPhone. The first thing you need to do, go into your settings and then go into the camera settings, and here you have plenty of different options. The first thing that I like to change is I like to go into my formats, and I'm using the most compatible mode and not the high efficiency mode. The reason for that is I'm just getting a different video format. It's easier to work with in Premiere Pro and CapCut. And overall, I just found that also when I'm displaying my videos on YouTube and also on social media, I actually found the footage to look a bit more natural when I'm using the most compatible mode. The next thing that I want to do is I want to go to record video. And as you can see, I have set my videos to be natively shot in 4K at 24 frames per second. If you're filming yourself talking, if you're filming some A-roll shots like you can see right now, I always like to shoot those videos at 24 frames per second. And whenever I'm shooting some cutaway shots, then I like to film those at 60 frames per second, but you can change these settings directly in the camera app. If you would like to film in 25 frames per second and 50 frames per second, you could enable the PAL formats. And if we scroll down, you can also see that I have deactivated the HDR video mode. This might be a bit weird and probably a bit counterintuitive, as HDR stands for high dynamic range, and you get these beautiful colors and everything is looking perfect. And that is still true. And if you're only watching your videos on your iPhone, then I would actually go with the HDR mode. But if you're also planning to publish your videos on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, I think the workflow, if you're not using HDR, is just so much more easy and so much faster. So I think the upsides of not using HDR actually are bigger than the upsides of having a more contrasty and more vibrant image that you get with the HDR video. And everything else I basically just leave as it is. Let's go back here. I won't go into slow motion right now. If you can, I would recommend to shoot at 60 frames per second. You still get a nice slow motion look and you are getting just a much higher quality image. If you have an iPhone 13 or 14, you can also record in cinematic mode. I would absolutely recommend to shoot in 4K at 24 frames per second, as this by far delivers the best looking image. Another thing that I also think is very important is here under preserve settings, I like to activate the camera mode and also the exposure adjustment. So if you have set your resolution, your frame rate, your exposure, and you have activated this and you go out of the camera app, by the time you go back into the camera app, you have all the settings just as you left it. All the other settings here are not super important. And then there's one more thing that I like to change, or that I like to activate, and that is the grid. You can see that right here. Always activate this grid. It's super helpful to help you frame your shots. You can use them to find leading lines. You can use the rule of thirds. You also know where the center of your shot is. So it's definitely very, very helpful to have that turned on. So these are all of the settings that I like to change in the settings app. And now let's check out the camera app itself and let's see what else we can tweak there. So this is what it looks like. This is what the native camera app looks like. You can see you can change between the different lenses and so on. Generally speaking, if you can, I would always recommend to use the 1x lens, as this has the widest open aperture, the best optics, and overall this will deliver the best results possible. At the top here, you can see you have basically you can dial in the overall exposure. And depending on where you're shooting, of course, if you're filming in low light situation, then of course bring that to 0. But whenever you're filming outside or in a well-lit environment, I always like to bring that down to around minus 0.07, because iPhones always tend to overexpose, and you can compensate that here very, very nice. Next to that, you can activate or deactivate ProRes just by tapping on it. And to be honest, I'm almost never ever using ProRes. The reason for that is the file sizes are just gigantic, and the upsides that you get with it, you know, for online distribution, and that's basically what you're gonna do, people will not notice any difference. So it is definitely better, and if you want to get the absolute best quality somehow possible, use ProRes. But for regular day-to-day usage, I would not recommend to use ProRes, to be honest. Next to that, you could activate the action mode and deactivate it. To be honest, as long as you're not doing some crazy action like, riding a jet ski or, I don't know, riding a quad through the desert or something like this, I would not use that, to be honest. The internal stabilization of the iPhones is already that freaking good, so it's not needed. Next to that, we have 4K 24 frames per second. We have already talked about that. And then basically there's only one thing left that I would recommend that you should do, and that is to lock the focus and the exposure. You can do this just by long pressing on the screen. You can see it says AE and AF locked, so that means auto exposure and auto focus is locked. You can also slide down the exposure to get a cool look or something like this, or to make it look brighter. And these are basically the settings that I'm using. And as you can see, you can get some crazy good results using that. Of course, the right settings will only bring you this far. If you don't know how you can frame your shots, if you don't know how to use a 3-axis gimbal, if you don't light your videos, if you're not using natural lighting correct, of course, you will still end up with videos that still look crappy. So in case you want to learn more, in case you want to bring your videos to the next level, we have a brand new Smartphone Filmmaking Pro Starter course where you can get started for only $27. And in 5 days, you will learn the essentials, the basics of capturing great looking videos with your smartphone. I will link it down below. This program is currently on sale. But in case you're interested in that, in case you want to bring your videos to the next level, you can check it out right now. And we do also offer a satisfaction guarantee, so there is literally no risk on your end. In case you have not seen the video where I'm showing you the top vertical gimbal movements, then click this video over there. Thank you and bye bye.